This is a Global Original Podcast. Coming up this week, an illuminated leather jacket, red lines spell danger, the best album of all time, and something old makes a comeback. But first, here's a woman with a textbook and a list.
Who do you think you're talking to?
I'm talking to a person in Stoke-on-Trent called Liz. Liz.
Hello there, Nick.
Hello
Hope
there,
you're well.
Liz. I'm super duper. Thanks for asking.
Oh, good. Nice to talk to you again. Earlier on, somebody referred to a query whether
Excuse
Trump...
me?
I'm sorry?
Go on.
Whether Trump had a mental disorder.
Oh.
Well, I don't know if you are... have you heard of the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders?
No, I have not.
It
sounds like a great read.
Well, it is the practice manual referred to by expert practitioners in psychology, psychiatry, etc.
Right.
And it's in the 4th edition. So what I'm going to quote to you now, I don't think there's been another edition. So it's,
now, when you say quote to me, what length of passage are we talking about?
I'm only just going to read a little bit.
Well, what does that mean?
Well,
how many words approximately? How many lines? Can you sing it to us?
But it's important to note that if anybody's listening, that's a professional, the one I'm reading from is the text revision 2000.
Well, it's not really important at all. But how many words are we talking about here, Liz?
About 20.
20 words. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, describe salient features of the narcissistic personality disorder.
Narcissistic personality. I knew you were going to say that. The narcissistic personality disorder. That's what you got, Donnie.
Oh, shut up!
As a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, need for admiration, lack of empathy, and begins in early childhood.
Yeah.
I can be more presidential than anybody.
That sounds like him.
And presents in a variety of contexts. Now, it goes on, which I'm not going to, but it says if 5 or more of the following fit, then
Yes.
that is the diagnostic criteria for 301.81.
Yeah, which means...
and he's got
put him in
all 9 of them.
A rubber room.
Warning, warning.
Yeah, we're all in great danger. Okay, what are the 9?
He's... well, you didn't want me to read any more.
No, 9. Please, I dismiss my previous instructions.
Okay, well, he's got all 9 plus 2 others that's
Right,
not
go
even on the list.
Read them.
Right, so point 1 has a grandiose sense of self-importance.
Yes.
That is, exaggerates achievements and talent.
Yeah, okay. Point 2.
Expects to recognise...
Point 2.
Is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty,
Correct.
or ideal
Point
love.
3.
Point 3, believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people.
Absolutely.
Trust me,
Yep.
I'm like a
Point
smart
4.
person.
Yeah.
Point 4, requires excessive admiration. Point 5...
Wait a minute. It requires excessive admiration.
You are going to love President Trump.
Yes.
Exactly. Point 5 has a sense of entitlement, that is, unreasonable expectations of especially favourable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations.
Right, I haven't got a clip for that, but go on.
Point 6 is interpersonally exploitative, that is, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends.
Yeah, what do you think of that, Melania?
I don't care.
Yeah, she's beyond caring at this point.
Point 7 lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognise or identify with the feelings and needs of others.
Mm-hmm.
Point 8
as
is
in...
I will be so great to women. I cherish women.
I will be so great to women, he said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Point 8 is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her.
Right.
And point 9, point 9 shows arrogant, haughty behaviours and attitudes.
Yeah. Well, I think we've nailed him. Guilty on all counts.
And 2 others.
Oh,
well, this isn't in the book. This comes from me. That that we all know.
Bonus points. Go ahead.
Misogynistic.
Yes.
And certain sexual preferences.
I cherish women.
Yeah. What an awful, awful person. He is the most powerful person in the world.
It's frightening, isn't it?
It's incredible. I'll restate my case. If aliens from space came down and asked to be led to our leader, we'd have to take them to him.
Oh, no.
They'd probably think that we were kidding and annihilate the lot of us.
And the thing is, was it you that mentioned it? I think it was, or somebody anyway, that it's getting worse.
It is. Yeah, it is getting worse. He's stumbling. He can't read a script anymore. He keeps mispronouncing words. The look on his face when he's reading, it's as though he's got no idea what he's saying anymore.
Yeah, so he's never going to get better.
Oh, he's not going to get better. No. No, I think we're beyond that. No, he ain't going to get better. He's just going to get worse. All right, thanks a lot, Liz. That's excellent research, by the way. Well, my show is noted for its rigorous research. I'm all about the books. You remember books, don't you? They came from a place called the past, which is where I thought cassettes came from, but not anymore. Julian says, on another topic, cassettes are the ideal way to listen to rock, in my opinion, as they compress and soften the sound when played at volume. All your favourite albums were recorded on tape, so why not represent on the same format? Because it's a different tape, Julian. The tape that albums were recorded on is, I don't know precisely, so I'll make it up. It's about an inch wide. No end of information you could get on that. A cassette tape, on the other hand, is about a quarter of an inch wide. Squeezing it all on that doesn't make it sound very good. How on earth can anybody say that? Cassettes. This just blows my mind that cassettes are coming back. Well, what next? 8-track? Cassette tapes, which seemed doomed less than a decade ago, says this story, will once again be high on Christmas wish lists as artists such as Coldplay and Robbie Williams release new music on that format. Robbie Williams?
Boring.
So far in 2019, sales of cassettes have hit a high, their highest level since 2004, when the format's decline seemed terminal. I just am mystified by this. I sort of get why people are buying vinyl again, because it's nice to hold and touch and squeeze and sniff. It does smell nice, and it's nice to have such big artwork. But cassettes... Come on. There's nothing good about cassettes at all. You can't go from track to track. You don't know when one track starts and another ends. The box that it comes in is rubbish. They're highly subject to, getting lost in the machine. If you've ever had a tape unspool itself in a machine, it's a nightmare. Nothing about them is any good. And yet the kids can't get enough of them. It says the introduction of digital downloads threatened the future of CDs and cassettes, which had previously almost wiped out vinyl. Yet with good reason, because apart from touching it and looking at it and feeling it and sniffing it, CDs are so much better than albums. Please don't call in and say that the albums sound better. No, they don't. Not unless you're listening to it on massively expensive equipment. I mean, if you spent £1,000 on your turntable, then maybe it might sound better than a cheap CD player. But otherwise, no, it doesn't. Cassette sales were at their height in 1989 when Sony's all-conquering Walkman allowed people to enjoy music on the move. And I bet the first time you heard, if you're of an age when you heard the Walkman for the first time, it was probably Penthouse and Pavement or, something like that, something electronic. It just blew your mind. It did mine.
Groovy.
Stood in a shop and I put the Walkman on. I couldn't believe it.
Yowza.
It was like having a stereo clamped to your head. That's ancient history now. In recent years, vinyl sales have made a comeback, which I think is an affectation, really. It's just a fashion. Beards made a comeback and people obsessing about brewing coffee in the most long and tedious ways, all of those things. And beer being brewed in very, very small amounts. All that hipster stuff, most of which is not what it appears to be. If you go to your favourite alcohol outlet and try to buy a hipster small volume beer, you will find that if you read the small print, almost all of them are owned by Budweiser. Owned by the people that do Budweiser. That's because these days people aren't in business for the long term. They're in business to make a killing in the short term and then get out. And that's exactly what they do. All of those artisanal beers, I bet you can't find a single one that is still run by an artisan. They run them for 6 months and then they sell up and waltz away. Commenting on the retro trend, Karen Emanuel, chief executive of the Key Production Group, who manufactures cassettes, vinyl and CDs, told The Guardian, "We never stopped producing them, but demand had tailed off to tapes for police interviews." Those are the only people that used cassettes. The police for doing their interviews. "It weren't me, mister, I ain't done nothing." They said it's difficult to say exactly how many tapes will be sold this year, but I think it's going to be more than 100,000. 100,000! Why? They said cassettes are not only being released by big artists, but also small artists too. Well, how small? What, 3 feet? Are they that small? I don't get it. But there's presses that I do get anymore. Nothing makes sense anymore, have you noticed? Richie in Sutton says, will your new podcast be available on cassette? No, only on Wave or MP3 or whatever it is. All digital, baby. I am fully up to date. Hip and with it. Paul tweets, making a mixtape for someone was such a lovely way to give the gift of music to someone that you cared for. Somebody that you'd had a court order insisting that you don't approach. He says, messaging a playlist on Spotify just doesn't have the same impact. Well, that is true. But you can mix a CD. That would be the same as a mixtape. Do a mix CD, Paul. Or just leave them alone. They've asked you once. Coming up, the best album of all time, and someone wants to turn back time. Jim says the problem with comparing the Beatles and the Floyd is that Floyd came slightly after the Beatles, using a lot of the techniques pioneered by George Martin and the Beatles. Well, yes, but if you're only talking about production, but we're not. I mean, we just briefly mentioned that all of those best albums ever made lists, they always have Sgt. Pepper as the number one best album ever made, and it just isn't. Dark Side of the Moon is, by any measure, the best album ever made. That's just a fact. Lewisham, hello, Jane.
Hi, Nick.
Jane.
Donny, all he wants is America how it was in, like, the beginning of Elvis Presley and those lovely, lovely Cadillacs.
What, white, you mean?
It was a wonderful place.
It was white?
And it... Sorry?
It was white. Is that what you mean? He just wants to make America white again.
No, I said he wants to make America how it once was. It was
well, what kind of a thing is that to want? It's a ridiculous thing. You want to go back in time? Not even Cher can turn back time.
He can't. That's just it. He can't. But America and our globe can be, with this modern technology, can be absolutely marvellous.
Huh? What modern technology?
Technology, well, that's what makes everything better, isn't it? Mind you, the electric might run out on my phone.
Technology makes everything better. No, it doesn't.
It does. Anyway, what's gone wrong with England, America and our globe, and what's brought about Brexit is too many people have had too many children instead of 2. So what we need to do now is promote the one-child policy.
Yeah, very bad idea.
Around the globe.
Very bad idea.
No.
It is.
What do you want then? Just keep adding to the population.
Well, unfortunately, Jane, we've got no nuclear war. Is that
what you want? A nuclear war?
Yes, actually, it is. I'm yearning for a nuclear war, Jane, because that seems the most sensible policy to pursue.
Yeah, well, you might blow the planet up.
So
thought about that,
so the
then
option,
you'll have nowhere to put your feet on.
I know you.
And none of all these billionaires have anywhere to put their feet on.
Where will you put your
they
stuff?
They need to really, really think what they are doing.
One-child policy is a disastrous policy. China has already showed that. Absolutely.
No, they never stuck to it. That's what's gone wrong.
No, what went wrong was that there's now way too many men and not enough women.
Yeah, well, they didn't appreciate the woman, did they?
Well, no.
Now they do.
Well,
now they do.
I'm not sure
and
that's true.
And they never stuck to it. If they'd have stuck to their one-child policy...
Then it would have been a catastrophe.
No, they would have 500 million. Instead, they've got 1,400 million.
Unfortunately, Jane, it's like a pyramid. It's like an inverted pyramid. If you have fewer babies being born, then that generation won't be large enough to support the bigger generation that came before.
But they all support themselves.
Who do?
They don't. The larger population.
Old people do not support themselves. They're supported by the people that come up behind them.
No, they do support themselves.
No, they don't. If there is no generations
this is absolute waffle, Nick.
Jane,
our globe is very, very overpopulated.
It's not true.
Our globe's in trouble.
It's not in trouble.
It cannot breathe.
Oh, please. We can't breathe. The globe's doing just fine.
No, there's nearly 8 billion people. No, the oceans are being
If
polluted.
you drive 5 minutes out of any town in this country, all you'll see is green. We're not full up. And this is a tiny little island.
We cannot feed... Yes, it is packed. That's why...
It's not packed. I just described, if you drive 5 minutes out of any town in this country, Jane, all you see is green. It's not full.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of driving, right? But that is still not
that's
enough
alarming.
to feed the population that we've got now. We have to stop immigration...
We don't have enough to feed the population we've got. What on earth are you talking about, woman?
That are having too many children.
In what parallel universe do we not have enough food to feed the people in this country? People in this country have doubled in size. Personally.
Yes, because they're not eating good food, and they're not. A lot of them are.
No, they're eating too much food. It's because we have got too much food. Calories are too easy to acquire. That's the problem.
It's all the wrong food, isn't it?
No, it isn't all the wrong food.
Women are working as too soon after having babies.
God, there's no end of rules at your place. You can't have any more than one baby. You have to wait a specific time after you've had birth. Eat good food. Good grief.
Yes, what's wrong with it?
It's like being at school.
I didn't say one baby. I said it's better if you
But it
had
isn't.
one baby.
It isn't.
Yes,
because
it is.
No, you're wrong about that because there's not.
I am
won't.
not wrong.
You're not a teacher. Hey, Jane, are you a teacher?
Listen, if this globe
Listen to me, Jane. Listen to. Are you a teacher?
It would have exactly.
Jane, stop speaking for a moment and answer the question. Are you a teacher? No. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that long pause as a yes. Oh my God, we're all in great danger. We're in big trouble, huge. You can't have a one-child policy because there won't be enough people to support the previous generation, which are huge in number. And they won't be economically active after they reach a certain age. And so they'll be dependent on the people that come up behind them, the younger people, to make all the money that will make the world go round. And if you don't have enough babies, as we don't in this country, there's a big problem in this country that we aren't producing enough babies. People should start, interfacing with each other.
Disgusting.
A little bit more. There aren't enough to go around. That's the big problem with reducing the number of babies that people have, is because it would create a massive problem in the short term. I mean, it might be all right in 100 years' time, but in 100 years' time, we're all dead. Jane, I'm not putting it back up again. You can't make me. I mean, apart from anything else, that piercing voice, I mean, My ears are ringing. Susie says if they are bringing tapes back, the old-style biros to wind and rewind them will also be required. Well, that is true, yeah. Yeah, you can't have perfectly round biros. You got to have the ones with octagons or whatever they were. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, tapes. I can't believe that people are buying cassette tapes. What for? I bet they're all wearing beards while they're doing it, and they've got tattoos up to their nostrils. Daz says, I remember the night that the Berlin Wall came down. Bizarrely, David Hasselhoff sat on top of it that night, wearing a leather jacket that lit up. Really? Did that happen, or were you hallucinating? David Hasselhoff sang on top of the Berlin Wall in an illuminating leather jacket. Well, someone had to. Coming up, a Hasselhoff history and a new step backwards in road safety.
Who do you think you're talking to?
So David Hasselhoff, best known as the star of the TV series Knight Rider and Baywatch, in Germany was a popular singing attraction since 1985, which tells you enough about German popular music as you need to know. His album Night Rocker became a sensation. Really. In June 1989, Hasselhoff released Looking for Freedom, an album with a title track that seemed to speak directly to the citizens in European countries seeking democracy. That track had been played since 1988 in anticipation of the album's release. In November the 9th, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Was it a coincidence, or did Hasselhoff help incite a revolution? Let's assume that it was a coincidence. So there he is, singing in his light-up leather jacket. I am stunned. That man gets everywhere. He had a talking car. Yeah, well, pretty soon you're going to have a talking car. And it's going to tell you that you're doing everything wrong. Signs are going to be removed from the side of roads within 8 years under a government-backed plan to beam speed limits and traffic information directly onto screens in cars. They're going to take the signs away from the side of the road, and they're going to beam the information that's been lost from the streets into your car. More stuff on screens for us to gawp at while we're driving. What could possibly go wrong? A trial of superfast 5G Wi-Fi. Isn't 5G the Wi-Fi that fries your brain? I'm sure that there's some negative physical effect that some scientists are freaking out about. I think they're freaking out about it in Europe. Haven't countries banned 5G? But apparently it's considered perfectly safe in this country. Don't worry, the government says there's nothing to be concerned about. A trial of superfast 5G Wi-Fi is going to be introduced next year to enable roads to communicate directly with you in your car, making road signs redundant. They're going to be called naked highways. And the government says they could come in from 2027. So we should, if the government says they're going to be all ready to go by 2027, then we can expect them somewhere around 2050. There or thereabouts. 30 years late and 500% over budget. Road signs will be decommissioned and information will be displayed on digital units within cars, which concerns me because my car doesn't have no digital screen. Digital screens hadn't even been invented when my car was made. When my car was made, people were watching TV on an instrument the size of a cow. Flat screen, please. They would needed to have built a roof rack to carry the screen that they would have loaded in my car when they built my car. And they're talking about removing traffic lights and beaming the red light directly to you, like anyone's going to pay any attention to that.
Well, the whole world's gone crazy.
What's going on? Live on-road trials are going to be developed over the next year, here, there and everywhere, baby, coming to a location near you, including, but not limited to, Greenwich in southeast London, which is another excellent reason to avoid Greenwich. And one of the reasons that they're doing this is people are complaining about the amount of signs littering roadsides. And it's not just that they're an eyesore. It's that people don't pay any attention to them, as though road signs are for other, less important people. They should beam instructions into cars with instant penalties for ignoring them. Like a giant spike on a powerful spring could be released from the driver's seat when they go over the speed limit, for instance, or they run a red light. I mean, sure, there'd be a lot of blood and some unfortunate casualties, but I believe that other people suffering is a price worth paying. Who's with me? Show of hands. The number of road signs has apparently doubled in 20 years to 4.6 million. Well, I bet the number of cars has doubled. I don't know that that's true, but if you say it out loud, it becomes a fact. Did you know that the number of cars has doubled on our roads in the last 20 years? Motoring groups are estimating that as many as a third of road signs are of little use. Yeah, like the ones that say 20 or 30, for instance. Those are completely useless because nobody pays the blindest bit of attention to them. And what's the one with a red circle with a cross on it? I see that like loads of places. What does that mean? I suppose I should look it up. Well, my ignorance in that regard hasn't caused me any stress up to now. So I suppose if I continue not to know what it means, then no big shakes. And what about all those red lines on the side of the road? What is a double red line? Well, I mean, how is that different from a double yellow line? A double yellow line is don't park here. So a double red line is, no, really, we mean it. Don't park here. I'm mystified by that. It is a question I've asked on there before, and I don't believe that anybody's come up with an answer. If you can't park or stop on a double yellow line, why do they need a double red line? And what's a single red line? Questions. So it's hoped that the move away from signs will improve road safety by allowing cars to get information about road conditions and accidents more quickly. Well, small improvements, at best. Because the most dangerous thing in a car is the human dope doing the driving. If you get rid of them and replace them with a robot, everybody will be much safer.
Affirmative.
Until Judgment Day, of course, when we're all screwed.
Correct.
This anonymous text says, Germans have terrible taste in music. 99 red balloons. Well, that is proof positive, yeah. And David Hasselhoff. Don't forget about him. Margaret in Birmingham says, I noticed whilst in McDonald's, without mentioning any brand names, McDonald's, you say? Noticed while in McDonald's, a lot of young people are having their burger and chips delivered to their table. What? They do table service in McDonald's, do they? A lot of young people are having their burger and chips delivered to their table, and oldies like me, not phone savvy, have to queue to pay and stand around waiting for a cuppa. I suppose it's survival of the savviest. Not the chaviest, the savviest, says Margaret in Birmingham. It must be, how old am I now? It must be at least 30 years since I went into a McDonald's. I can't believe they got table service. And Josh says 5G is no more dangerous than chickens bathed in chlorine. Ah, poor little chooks. It's God's fault for making them out of meat. And that's it. Don't forget the other podcasts that I do, the Whole Show podcast, which is, as it sounds, the whole show with the ads and the news taken out. We put those up on the internet almost as soon as the individual shows end. And there's the podcast that I do with Carol McGiffin.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which I think you'll find amusing. It's called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, wherein we try to solve your problems. And you can send your problems to us, if you like, at nickandcarol@global.com. That's nickandcarol@global.com. You send us your problem, and we'll try to solve it. And you'll find those podcasts where you found this one. And I'll be back on the radio on Friday and Saturday night at 10. And until then, I'll be seeing you.
Bye-bye.